I also want to talk a little bit about graduation and the laws in each province, and then you can also get the homeschool equivalency certificate.
What we tell our members is you don't need a official high school diploma to go on to post-secondary education. In fact, we're finding now that the top-ranked universities in particular are more likely, well, they actually give preference to home-educated students over those from other backgrounds. And the reason they do that is they've come to recognize what the academic studies show, which is that homeschool students are academically more advanced. They have better self-study habits. They have all those character traits that you were just talking about too, where they show up on time and they do their work and they deliver results.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Kim McBride. I'm the National Chapter Coordinator for Action for Canada, and I'm sitting in Heather's chair tonight, filling in for her. It is my pleasure to welcome you tonight from coast to coast or from wherever you're tuning in to our evening show. Whether you are currently homeschooling, considering it for the first time, or simply want to understand the legal protections in place, this Empower Hour will deliver the essential knowledge and strategies every parent needs to fortify their child's future. Tonight, Action for Canada's very own homeschool lead, Doris Livingstone, will be hosting the show with special guest Peter Stock, president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, also known as the hslda. Together, they will address the growing interest in homeschooling across Canada and the importance of protecting the right of parents to direct their children's education. The title of the show is Homeschooling Updates and Warnings. It is August 20th, 2025, and this is the Empower Hour. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Doris Livingstone. Action for Canada is blessed to be in team with Doris, a homeschooling parent who comes with a wealth of experience and expertise. Having homeschooled her 3 children from K to 12 and now supporting the homeschooling of her grandchildren, Doris has learned that homeschooling becomes a way of life and a very fulfilling one, filled with opportunities and experiences. By the late 1990s, Doris discovered the Homeschool League Defense Association and became a member. hslda is a nonprofit organization devoted to protecting, empowering, and advancing home education in Canada. They provide legal services and professional homeschool support to help their member families flourish. Since 1991, they have represented homeschoolers in the courts and legislatures across Canada and work to promote parent choice in education. hslda also provides exclusive resources to make the homeschool life easier and offer expert advice and extensive member services within a professional circle of care. These services include knowing your provincial homeschool laws, to how to get started, finding a local support group, conventions in your province, learning about the different stages of homeschooling, to graduation, building a transcript, and post-secondary education. Over the years, as homeschooling solidly became the third option alongside public and private education, hslda has been there protecting the freedom of homeschool in Canada. Joining Doris this evening is our special guest, Peter Stock. Peter promotes home education and defends parental choice across Canada through his leadership in the Homeschool Legal Defense Association and the Canadian Centre for Home Education. Previously, Peter spent over 2 decades in a variety of roles in Parliament Hill. He and his wife homeschooled their 4 children and delight in encouraging others to explore a unique educational journey for their families. Peter will share valuable guidance and up-to-date information on homeschooling, including parents' legal rights, how to safeguard your homeschooling freedoms, and the steps to take if those rights are challenged. He will also discuss current concerns facing homeschooling families in Canada, as well as strategies to ensure your children receive a quality education rooted in your values. With legal protection, expert advice, and a wealth of resources, hslda empowers parents to homeschool with confidence. So please join me in welcoming Doris Livingstone and Peter Stock.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and welcome, Peter. It's so great to have you back. We've had you interviewed at least a couple of times in the last few years, and it's always great to get more updates on what's happening in Canada and this surge of homeschooling over the last 5 years. And just to those who are watching right now, if you have any questions, just pop them into the Q&A section, and we'll try to make some time at the end to address a few of those. So Peter, welcome, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the role that hslda has been playing in homeschooling families across Canada. I understand it started in 1991, and I'm sure there's been lots of updates since then.
Oh, there sure have been, Doris. Yes, thanks for having me on again. It's great to see you and share some time with the Action for Canada crowd. Yeah, so 34 years. It's a long time the organization has been in existence, and of course there were people homeschooling before that. And at the time we were founded, the families that were homeschooling found they had a bit of a challenge because a lot of governments, a lot of school boards, and other officials weren't sure what to think about home education. It fell into what you might call a bit of a gray area in the law. And in fact, some government authorities were quite hostile. Some parents were threatened with fines or jail time, or perhaps even having their children apprehended. Now, things have changed a lot in that time. Well, first of all, they've changed because those parents got together and helped found hslda. And the goal was to hire a lawyer that would help to defend their rights. And that's what we've done for 34 years. And we continue to do it to this day. Now, the good news is, right across Canada, every province and territory, home education is a legal activity. It's recognized as such by provincial governments and territorial governments. And so you can do it anywhere in Canada. And that's the good news. The not so good news is that sometimes there are still government officials, whether they're social workers, school board officials, who don't understand the law or don't necessarily respect it. And so that's where we come in. And if your family faces a challenge, and sadly, this is a regular occurrence, we're there to protect you. We're there to defend you and represent you. So that's the primary reason we were founded and continue to exist to this day. And by the way, we're busier than we've ever been.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I'm sure in the last 5 years, we've particularly seen a surge. According to the Canadian Centre for Home Education, a 2025 report said that there was homeschooling has grown a solid 54% over the 3 years. So tell us about what's causing parents to want to homeschool, particularly in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think there are two things at play here. I mean, first of all, we're all familiar with what happened during COVID, and a lot of not just kids were home during those years, but some of the parents were as well. And so I think there are probably two parts to the growth. The first part is what happened at that time, where parents who had maybe been thinking about homeschooling but hadn't really pulled the trigger on it yet said, well, this is our opportunity. We're at home anyway, we might as well try it out and see how it goes. And so an awful lot of families did do that. And, a number of them stuck with it. They found that, their kids were doing well academically. There was less anxiety in their lives, and they were enjoying it. They were enjoying their time together as a family. So we saw a lot of families start during COVID and continue on, but not every family. Some went back to the private schools, the public schools. Then there was a second cohort, and these are post-COVID, new to homeschooling families. And I think what we're seeing there is, and sadly, it's a bit of a negative reason, but I think a lot of families are just fed up with what's going on in the public system in particular. They're tired of the agendas, they're tired of the bullying, and all the negative things that are happening in our public system. And they've just said, you know what, we've got to find an alternative. So it's not just us as homeschoolers that are seeing a growth in our movement. There's been tremendous growth in the private schools as well for that same reason. But yeah, it's not the greatest reason to start, but I think a lot of families that have started have found, again, real benefit in it, and they're not looking back. They're plowing ahead with home education and just enjoying it as a family.
Yeah, I mean, they were the best years ever. I mean, for those of you who are just getting started, I always encourage you. The first year is all about learning, even as a parent, and then the child's learning. And whether they're 5 or 10 or 15, whenever you pull them, it takes a year, sometimes 2 years, to sort of get into a rhythm. And but we'll get into more of the opportunities that HSLDA can offer and to support you. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the stats. The NHERI, so NHERI, National Home Education Research Institute, also had a 2025 report show that homeschoolers report generally 15 to 25% higher than public school kids on standardized achievement tests. Um, what other information do you have to support statistics in that regard? Because we've been hearing this for years and years, and my gut feeling always has been in regards to the whole tailored education. You know, you tailor it to the child who you might have a wiggly kid, or you might have one who just needs to hold and touch and feel, and you might have one that wants to watch the movie, or the one who needs to go outside and burn energy first before they can settle down and read a book. And but even in all of those things that you can be pulling your hair as a parent, going, "Why isn't my kid sitting still?" or whatever. These stats still show they're doing okay. And so I always say to parents, you don't have to panic. You're still going to be okay. You're going to be at least as good as the average or better. So if you could speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, a couple of things on the sort of the hardcore academic side, the studies that have been done over decades now, because they really started back in the 80s and really with a bang in the 90s. They all tend to show the same thing, which is that homeschoolers tend to outperform their peers academically. And I should mention, and this is really key, it's not just academically, it's socially as well. All the range of social indicators, social development indicators that you can gauge, home educated kids generally do better on those as well. So there's a certain benefit to home education that we're not seeing in the institutional school setting. I think it's pretty easy to explain, really. First of all, you're in a safe environment. You're in an environment where you're not wasting time. And I think a lot of homeschoolers recognize once they get started, they see this quite quickly. We can have our academics done, especially for the younger elementary age kids, in a couple of hours. We don't need 6 hours a day to do schoolwork, not the academic schoolwork anyway. We'll do other things. We'll play, we'll do sports, we'll do music and art and field trips and all these other great things. But in terms of the hardcore academics, we only need a portion of the day to accomplish what happens in a whole day in the public system, because there's so much more wasted time in a classroom. No fault of the teacher, it's just the nature of the beast. You got 30 kids in a room, there's going to be disturbances and interruptions. And the final thing is, parents know their kids best. We see when our kids have a weakness or a struggle. We see what their strengths are. We can build on those. We can spend more time encouraging them through the weakness. If they don't get a concept in math, we don't move on the next day to something else and forget about it. We work through it, and so we have success that way. And that's that's sort of the basics of why home education is successful. I think the other aspect that's really, really, really valuable is that we're not just teaching our kids. We're teaching them we're not just teaching them knowledge, we're teaching them how to learn, so that even if we do miss something along the way, we can we can be confident that our children can pick it up when they need to. So if there's something that's missed, if they've learned how to learn and they love learning, they're going to continue that, not just through their school years, but for the rest of their lives. Homeschoolers are learners.
Yeah. And I know that I've seen a couple studies already, and I know my oldest daughter was part of that one report the CCHE did about 15 years ago, seeing how adults are doing or I guess it was ages 17 to, I don't know, well into like maybe 25 or 30, and how are they still doing? And it's interesting. And then of course, Cardis also did that one about the study about how are these kids doing now as adults. I think it was age 25 to 39. And still their activity in society and their involvement in families and marriage and all these things. It was really interesting to see the fruit of the work now over the decades.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of strong academic evidence, and of course, if you talk to individual homeschooling families that you know, and I think most Canadians probably know one or two families that homeschool at this point, you'll witness what their children are like. You'll know how they're doing, and of course, it's a great source of I suppose of anecdotal evidence as well. And it's what encourages so many of us to get started in the first place.
Yeah. Let's break it down a little bit by our freedoms. So we never want to take our freedoms for granted, which is why I actually signed up to HSLDA in the late 90s, because it was still sort of, I mean, it wasn't grassroots, but like you were saying, it was still forming. And I needed to know that I had the legal protection in case somebody showed up at my door. But I also did it because I wanted to support the greater cause of HSLDA. In case there was another family in another province who was struggling, my supporting HSLDA would help them along as well. So what are some of the current concerns today that homeschoolers or homeschooling families, perhaps there's some provinces, some stories you can share that that are interesting, and maybe they're glad they were a member of HSLDA, because if you're not and you have a problem, who do you go to? And that's why I think being a member is so important, because you've got that protection.
Yeah. Well, the most common, the most serious cases we have, I'll put it that way, unfortunately they're far too common, is in regards to child protection services or children's aid, depending which province you're in. It's social services, so to speak, and people can run into trouble with social services for all kinds of reasons. Often they're not doing anything wrong, but it does become an issue, and this could be anything from fostering and adopting a child to anonymous complaints. Maybe a neighbor doesn't like you, or a complete stranger doesn't like you, whatever. Anybody can make an anonymous complaint. We see all kinds of family law situations where homeschooling is not the issue primarily, but homeschooling is affected because of the situation in a family court or due to a social services investigation. So, common example that we've seen so many times is the nosy neighbor sees the children out playing in the middle of the morning. They've got their recess from their classes and says, "Why aren't those kids in school? I'm calling the Children's Aid Society. I'm calling Child Protection Services." And they do that. And so Protection Services is required by law to investigate any complaint, no matter how frivolous. And they show up at the door and say, "What's going on?" Now, most of the time it can be a simple explanation. Well, we home educate, and that's why, the children are home and not in school. But often these things can snowball. And let's say mom's having a hard day, and one of the children's just one of the little children's just taking their diaper off, and they're running around with it, and there's a mess on the living room floor where somebody spilled Lego, and suddenly the social worker decides, well, I see smoke here, there may be fire. I'm going to investigate further. And so things can get out of hand quite quickly. And this is where a quick call to HSLDA, we have an emergency number 24/7, where members can call and say, get our lawyer on the line right away and say, how do I handle this situation? And so we can give advice from that point forward and represent the family and resolve the situation, de-escalate it, and resolve it completely for the family.
With the issues going on in public school, and just there's been so much attention lately with education it's been a sort of a big topic the last few years. Has there been any concern yet regarding to the freedom to homeschool anywhere in Canada yet?
Yeah, I am sensing, I will say, more interest from certain provincial governments for sure. We've always had some folks within either the bureaucracy or the political class who are not favorable towards home education for a variety of reasons. I mean, there can be financial reasons. That one's probably more obvious to people because if your child is removed from the public system, the local school or school board is losing, anywhere from $12,000 to $16,000 a year per student that leaves. And that's a lot of money. If a family of four decides they're homeschooling their kids, that's a starting teacher's salary right there. It's gone from their budget. So the financial interest on the part of schools and teachers unions is very obvious. What is more probably insidious and sometimes subtle is a political reason for opposing home education, which is folks who have agendas and don't like to see people removed from the system because they're not being taught the latest ideology. Those are the folks that are perhaps more challenging to deal with. So we have, and this tends to be more the political class, but it can happen in the bureaucracy too, where that type of leader says, I want all these kids learning this agenda, whether it's the SOGI or climate change, or you can name 6 or 7 other things that are being pushed in schools. Some of which some folks will agree with, some will disagree with. But the point is, there's this idea that there should be uniform indoctrination of children on the part of some of these political leaders, and so they're not fans of home education for that reason, because not all home educators will teach these agendas. That's the bottom line. So we are seeing, I think, trend towards slightly more oversight in some provinces. I would note Newfoundland, Manitoba, and possibly New Brunswick. BC has given us a bit of a break in this regard because the legislature is so evenly divided at the moment. I don't think the current government really wants to upset, tens of thousands of families by messing with home education at this point. But we'll see what happens next election, I guess. And so about half the provinces in Canada, we are seeing some movement towards perhaps greater oversight or more regulation.
Yeah, and each province is different that way. From the top of your head, do you recall the bigger provinces that have the larger population of homeschoolers versus
Sure.
other ones?
Yeah, so Ontario has the most, and followed by British Columbia. And then we would be looking at Alberta, Manitoba, Quebec, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and then Newfoundland. And interestingly enough, PEI has more home educators than Newfoundland does at this particular point in time. PEI is a bit of a bright spot on the map because it has a very I call it a low regulation environment for homeschooling. There's not a lot of reporting that one has to do to the government on the island, and that was a freedom that was fought long and hard for, and finally won. And so a lot of families take advantage of that and home educate their kids in Canada's smallest province.
I think we've kind of covered this here, but what steps should parents take if their rights to homeschool are challenged? And I guess it would be different whether you're a member or not as well, right?
Yes, and so if you're a member, you simply pick up the phone and call us, and we're there to help you immediately. Yeah, if you have a problem and you don't have membership, kind of depends what the issue is. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're faced with a Children's Aid Society or social services investigation of some sort, my recommendation would be to hire a lawyer. Don't try and do that on your own because you are not going to be, frankly, no one is equipped to deal with them. You need a lawyer who specializes in that type of law to represent you. They have a lot of power. They can ruin your lives. And you definitely need professional help for that. So strongly advise people to get a lawyer if they face that sort of situation. Now, situations that are less threatening, and that might just simply be a little dispute with the school board. Perhaps you can work it out yourself. But again, we've got decades of experience in dealing with those sorts of issues as well, and can usually resolve them very quickly for families if they do run into a challenge.
Yeah. So how can we safeguard our homeschooling freedoms? So provincially, like for me, I mean, I can support you guys. I can support CCHE. Um, Perhaps stay connected, I guess, is a big one in your provincial homeschool association. What other measures can families do to safeguard their freedoms?
Yeah, I think that's I think you're right, Doris. I mean, the key organizations, of course, are hslda, because we do this full time and professionally. We have lobbyists and lawyers on staff. Um, yes, we encourage membership in your provincial homeschooling organization as well. If you're connected with your local group, that's also a great place to, gather information, what's happening lately, and if there is action to be taken at some point in time, and at different times in our history, in most provinces, homeschoolers have gathered at the legislature at some point to sort of stand up for their freedoms. Hopefully, we don't have to do that anytime soon anywhere, but it can be a need. The other thing I recommend to families, and this is not news to a lot of people, but some folks will find this a new idea, and that is to join the provincial political party of your choice. I'm not going to tell you which one is the best one because there may not be a best one in any given province, but the one that you feel most comfortable with that best represents your viewpoints, just buy a membership, and then you have a direct opportunity to influence who your MLA or MPP or member of provincial parliament, etc., is. You have an opportunity to influence who your premier or leader of the opposition is, and you have perhaps a chance to influence policy a little bit as well. Very few people are actually members of political parties in Canada, so your very minimal involvement, like a $5 or $10 membership, and maybe voting once every few years on who your candidate's going to be or who your leader's going to be, is a very small commitment, but it's a huge, huge source of influence for our movement. So I would encourage membership in provincial political parties. And frankly, just in the interests of good citizenship and in a better country, pick a federal political party too and get involved that way as well. There are lots of things that happen at the federal level that don't directly impact education, but impact our lives nevertheless.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the other aspects to membership. I mean, legal protection is the big one. And so it also, when you sign up, you can find out what your provincial laws are because they're close, but they're different. And like we've talked about other services, and I just made a list here on even how to get started for those who have no point of contact, no reference, but they want to start homeschooling, whether their child is 5, like I said, or 10 or 15. If they reach out to you, tell us about the service that you offer.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing is all our staff are veteran homeschoolers, just like yourself, Doris, or myself. We've gone through the process and the journey, and we have a lot of experience with it. Many of our staff have actually home educated children who have exceptional needs as well. They're not they've had that additional experience, and so we're able to advise families, personally, directly on steps they can take. And if one of the common, I won't call it a struggle, but challenges that families often face, especially at the beginning, is what curriculum should I use? That's a big question. There's a huge variety of curriculum out there, and a lot of it's great, but which is the right curriculum for my child? And is it the same as for my other child? And the answer might be no, it might be different. So we actually have a curriculum consultant, somebody who has been advising on this, has advised literally thousands of families over the years on curriculum choices. And so that's somebody you can access. if it turns out at some point you detect you may have a special challenge with one of your children, an exceptional need is a possibility. We have a professional exceptional needs consultant as well. This all comes with your membership. There's no extra charge for any of this. So you get a consultation with either of these people, and you can consult our staff anytime you want on questions from, yes, getting started, but all the way through, okay, we're starting high school now. What do we do now? Or we're just about to graduate. How do I get my child into college or university or trade program of their choice? And so we help with successful post-secondary admissions as well.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
And also finding a local support group. I think I can't mention enough how important it is to be connected to a local support group. And, there you'll find new friends for your, not just for yourself, for your kids. There's programs that often happen in these support groups. So when they reach out to you, how do you point them to where they need to go to get started with a support group?
Yeah, so we'll see which groups are available in their area. I will say that with the huge number of new homeschoolers, a lot of groups are finding they're getting filled up, which is a great problem to have. But there are new groups starting all the time. So I think there's probably more opportunity in this area than there ever has been before. So yes, we'll connect them with a group in their area, and if we're not aware of one where you live, we will work with the provincial organization to see if we can find one that they're aware of. But we want to see everybody engaged at that level as well, for reasons of community. It's much harder to homeschool in isolation. If you have, we're not talking about needing to be with other families every day of the week, but once a week you get the kind of support and encouragement you need. And I guess I would also add on top of that, and this is something that you're familiar with too, Doris, is that conferences, which happen generally annually in every province and region across the country, are also a great opportunity for parents to attend, to hear speakers, to get answers to questions that maybe they haven't had answered before, to browse curriculum, to actually see it in person, not just sort of see it online. It's very different, of course. To talk to the people who are selling that curriculum, and because they're all experts, they've all homeschooled their kids as well. And so it's a great, and it's also a great opportunity to make some new friends as well. So we strongly encourage people to consider a conference. Now, I know not every family can afford that every year, but I would strongly recommend it if you're just getting started to at least try to get to one conference and get a greater sense of what resources are actually available to you.
And
by the way, we do have a list of those conferences on our website, and I think we're able to pull that up. So if that's the case, we'll maybe see that in a minute. Yeah, so there's the homepage, and if we scroll down just a tiny bit, hslda.ca homepage, and there's a green bar there right in the middle, and if we click on that, what you'll see come up is a list of conferences across the country. And of course, each one of these has a link attached to it, so you can get information from the website about exactly where it is and what's involved, who's speaking, etc. And then we've got some of next year's conferences listed already, the ones we have dates for. For those in BC, good news, in the Lower Mainland, there's a new conference happening. I think it's going to be in the Langley area. They haven't nailed it down for sure yet, but the dates are there. Is it May 15th to 16th? There's one to mark in your calendar if you live in British Columbia and you're in the Lower Mainland. And then, of course, just about every other region of the country and province is covered with a homeschool conference. A lot of folks, I'm afraid, in our north are probably out of luck for those unless they're coming south for shopping or to see family or whatever, and they can time that visit. But we just don't have the same population, of course, up there.
yeah, no, those conferences were my lifeline, and I lived on Vancouver Island during those years, and the closest one in the earliest years was in Langley, and we made it a trip, a girls' trip. All of us moms went out, and then later on they were in the Okanagan, and so then we still made it a big weekend because it was just a time to remember why you're doing what you're doing and getting recharged and refocused for the fall. Because oftentimes usually by April and May for sure, parents and sometimes the kids, but parents are fatigued and ready to sort of throw in the towel and just almost going, why are we doing this? But then you go to a conference, you're going, this is why I'm doing it, and this is why it's so important. And you get just ignited. And also the whole curriculum providers, they're on site. You can actually open the curriculum, you can look at it, and you can decide, even as a mom teacher, like, do even I resonate with this curriculum? Or is this like, so not me, I could never teach it because I don't even understand it. So you get to actually look at curriculum and then think about each child and going, oh, this would really resonate with so-and-so in this program because there's music and songs and games and activities. This would really resonate with my Wiggly child. So I would highly encourage those conferences. And we also have the list as well on our website. So on our website, you would just go to the homepage and look under current issues and then scroll down to Homeschooling Revolution, and everything homeschooling is in there, and the links to hslda, the link is there, and thank you, Trenzio. Yeah, so at the top, go to current issues, and then scroll down, and you'll see Homeschooling Revolution. There it is on the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down on the right. There you go. And everything homeschooling is there. So you can find your provincial homeschool association. That's your link to get started as well. And if you scroll down, you'll see how to access some of the webinars we've done here, everything homeschooling, and then just the legal aspect of finding HSLDA. And there's some conferences there as well. So let's talk a little bit again about what's going on with the surge of homeschooling. And in my experience, I remember as a young mom, there would be families very mad at a teacher or mad at a school, and they pull their child, and then a year later they'd be tired and they didn't know what was in it, and they'd put their child back in. So with this movement of people pulling kids out of whether it's public or private, but mostly it's public. What can we say to encourage them to sort of continue on? We want to see everybody finish well. We want everybody to see the other parts of homeschooling and not just the grind of I gotta turn the page on this curriculum because then I will feel better and then I will know my child is learning, although that's not how learning occurs, by accomplishing a piece of paper. And we want to see all these new families and these new parents succeed and continue on year after year. And what can you say to that family who needs to hear something?
Right. Yeah. And that's a probably a bigger discussion than we could have in total tonight. But let me just share a few thoughts. One is, of course, we already talked about the conferences and the local support groups, and those the families that end up quitting, they're often not engaged that way. They're often not involved with the local support group, and they've never been to a conference, and they're kind of trying to do it all on their own, and they don't have that support and mutual encouragement from others. But let's say that's not the case. Let's say they have been engaged that way, and they're still finding it hard. The ones that actually find it the hardest are those who are trying to replicate school at home. And that might sound a little funny, but we're not actually trying to replicate school at home when we're home educating. Yes, we're providing education in the home, but home is just the place where some of our education happens. It can happen many other places as well. And I think probably one of the misunderstandings that's being caused by the phrase home education or homeschooling is it's not really about the home. It's not really about just educating somewhere outside of the school. It's about parent-led and parent-directed education. So, I mean, I've seen a couple questions in the chat already about, can I do things other than use curriculum? And the answer is yes. Generally, you can. The goal is learning and learning to love learning, and learning how to learn. It's not about filling our children's heads with a specific body of knowledge on a specific topic and completing the book. In fact, most of us as parents are guilty of, and we probably catch ourselves doing this even after many years. We're guilty of saying, "Oh, I haven't finished the book, therefore I failed," and that's simply not true. That's not the case. We need to recognize that our kids learn at a certain pace. Sometimes they learn things quickly. I had a child who learned who was years ahead in spelling, for example. She was a big reader, and spelling came very easy to her. And so she won the spelling bee as I mean, that's so stereotypical of homeschoolers, isn't it? She won the county spelling bee. But, she was years ahead in that. So we didn't even do spelling some years because it's like, what's the point? Are we going to do grade 8 spelling in grade 4? There's no point to that. Let's spend the time on something more valuable that will be useful to this child at this time. So maybe we spent more time reading some history or doing geography or whatever the case may be. So the wonderful thing about home education is we have this flexibility where we're able to draw on what's best, to cater to the interests of our child, and yet still accomplish something great by the end of the year. Having said all that, I do want to make the point that there are a couple of subjects where we do have to be a lot more deliberate and consistent in terms of, and in fact, I would say with mathematics in particular, we probably do want to be using something closer to a formal curriculum. It's a progressive, it's almost a language we're learning there, and it builds over the years. So you can't just sort of leave out a couple of years worth of math and expect to move on easily. You could miss a few little things along the way. It's not the end of the world, but using a math curriculum is probably valuable. But for some of those other subjects, you can use a variety of resources to teach.
I would agree with that. That's kind of what we were told in the beginning, and we stuck with the math curriculum the whole way. I had a thought, and I wanted to come back, but here it comes. So when we're homeschooling too, like if we get overly focused, this is to just encourage those who are just starting in new edit too. We have to think of the whole child and the journey. And so what I would do is I would set big goals for the year and then break it down, kind of like, okay, well, I want to accomplish like this much by Christmas, etc. And then I break it down again. And what can we do per month? But if you have a bad day, you have a bad day, and you switch it up. But as long as you see progress in the end, they're progressing. Like reading, like for a young child, is probably one of the biggest age variances. Like they can start reading. Like my oldest was reading, and this was not normal. And it was my first child, so I thought it was normal. But she was reading words at 4.5.
Right.
And then later on, like my second was more like 6.5, 7. And then it can go as late as 9 and 10. So knowing that gap is okay takes the pressure off already. And again, as long as they're progressing, and eventually they're going to become readers, and where they're going to become bookworms, maybe not, but they know how to read, and that's the key. And so I would say I'm not a bookworm, but I know how to read. You know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of us out there. And then you look at the character development, you look at chores and habits, and following through and finishing a job and being honest and being on time. And those things, you can start them very young, but that starts to show up in high school when they get a job. And how are we training them now so they're ready for that later? And there's so much about the homeschool life. It's not just about filling out that math paper and checking the box that they finish something.
Exactly. So
let's move into the chat. I noticed there was a couple of good questions in there, and one of them was, is there a forum for local retired mechanics, millwrights, artists, chefs, technicians that could come in to assist homeschoolers on occasion? And I want to say yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things my wife has organized for many years is she calls it group learning opportunities, and it's basically it's for high school students or high school age students, secondary age students, and she would pick a subject, could be biology, could be woodworking, and she would have somebody who's an expert in that field come in, and they'd have a classroom, and for maybe 2 hours a week there would be some tutoring. Maybe time for some experiments like dissecting the frog, something most parents don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the students would work on their biology through the rest of the week, working through a textbook or whatever the material is for the particular course they're studying. And then they come together once a week to have this group learning opportunity with other home educators. So they're still doing the vast majority of their learning under their parents' direct supervision, but you get this opportunity to have an expert come in who's in many cases, it's a biologist, somebody with a doctorate in biology, or somebody who's an expert master carpenter, craftsman, etc., who can teach how to do woodwork or whatever other subject you might be interested in. So the world is completely open to almost infinite possibilities when it comes to home education that way. If you have a vision for something, you can pursue it, and your children can benefit from it, and you're not constrained by somebody else's schedule or an institution's rules or whatever. You can go and do what's best for your kids.
Exactly. Yeah, I arranged that for my second daughter. She was just really into photography. So we were in a very small town, so I asked the main photographer in town to sort of mentor her. And to this day, that daughter is now a professional photographer. So,
wow.
Just taking somebody under her wing once or 2 days a week, for I think it was just a year we committed to something like that. And then my oldest too, like the law in BC, and this is why you need to know your provincial laws, allows you, and I don't always encourage this, but if I let my oldest child go to band, because we lived in a small town, band at the local public school because that's something I couldn't offer her.
Right.
And so she learned an instrument there. And it's funny, she made a comment. She goes, "Mom, nobody listens." I went, "I remember those days myself." But she had a good time. And then she was also able to join the track and field team and compete on the island. And they let her come in on that. So that was very kind of them to do that. But her education, her primary, I would say 95% of her education was still under me, and especially in the high school years as well. And but there are windows of opportunity. You know, they can join sports teams, like community teams, if you want. If you're worried about athletics, and like getting the tutorship and mentorship of trades, that's all there. And it's either talking to somebody in your support group who may know somebody, or maybe there's already something set up locally. Even now, I live in the Okanagan, and I know that there's a art hut, and she has it open for homeschool kids during the week. So there's a group that'll go and book the hut for about an hour or two a week. And so many, many opportunities besides, again, just the bookwork part of it. I also want to talk a little bit about graduation and the laws in each province, and I will speak for British Columbia. I know you can do it, either get a teacher assisted kind of thing, and then you get the official transcript from the government to show you've got a government transcript. And then you can also get the homeschool equivalency certificate, which is, I had kids that did one of each, or two of one and one of the other. And, but both proved to be fine for anything post-secondary. Right. And so let's talk a little bit about how that works in Canada.
Yeah, so every province may be a little bit different, and Quebec is its own situation. It's quite different because their entire educational system is also different. But in general terms, what we tell our members is you don't need a official high school diploma to go on to post-secondary education. In fact, we're finding now that the top-ranked universities in particular are more likely, well, they actually give preference to home-educated students over those from other backgrounds. And the reason they do that is they've come to recognize what the academic studies show, which is that homeschool students are academically more advanced. They have better self-study habits. They have all those character traits that you were just talking about too, where they show up on time and they do their work and they deliver results. And so universities, being generally private institutions in this country, even though most of them are publicly funded, they set their own admissions standards, and they invest a lot of money in admissions. They don't want to see students who come to their institutions fail out and not return, because it costs them money to recruit. It costs them money to engage in the admissions process. So they want students they know are going to succeed. So they generally give preference to home-educated students. So if you're applying as a home educator, and there are many ways to do it with post-secondary institutions, they're all a bit different, you will find, I believe, great success with applying as a homeschooler. You do not need that formal provincial high school diploma to make it in this world. Where we do sometimes run into trouble as home educators is not so much with colleges and universities anymore, but it's more with, in some provinces, it can be the trades, if you want to get into the trades, or maybe like a business school or a cosmetology school or something like that, where they say, where's your high school diploma? They're kind of living behind the times this way. Now, most of these institutions do recognize what was once called the GED, and that's actually changed in the last year. There's now a new test called the Canadian Adult Education Credential, and you can read about that online or on our website. And that's a replacement for the old GED. If you have the GED, you can still use that, but the CAEC is the new test, And that's a high school equivalency test that anybody can take as a you can take it as a homeschooler. And that's generally all you will need to apply to get into the trades, to the military, private business school, whatever.
Yes, so true. One of the questions, the conversation in the chat here is regarding vaccines and being able to enter a school. And again, I think that's going to be different based on each province's laws. But have you had any or heard of any situations where somebody's trying to go to a school and not being able to enter because of vaccines? Now, that's the joy of actually homeschooling. You can control what your child is going to get and how many and the variety. And there's a lot of, talk about, measles and all this other stuff out there, just creating fear and all that. I haven't known anybody yet who's had trouble in BC, but I also don't think the private schools in BC mandate it. But have you heard anything has anything come up from your side of it?
Yeah, now we again, we have different laws in each province, but one thing that seems fairly uniform is that every province, to this point in time anyway, does allow a conscience or religious freedom exemption on vaccines. You can. So, for example, in Ontario, you basically sign a form. You have to get it notarized. It says, for religious or conscience reasons, I do not want my child to be vaccinated. Or you can even choose the vaccinations if there's some reason to do so. And that's generally the case across the country. There's no place that says you can't go to school if you haven't been vaccinated, if you have a legitimate objection to being vaccinated. And I think we would probably find that supported by the courts. It hasn't been tested recently, but that's sort of been the long-term trend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see over time what's going to happen with that whole thing, whether it's public school, private school, or homeschooling. It's just something I'm always keeping an eye out for, to see how much the government wants to get into your family life and into your freedoms and your choices. Just going to check a couple more things in here. So before we close, how can people find you and your website?
Yeah, so it's fairly simple. It's just hslda, so the initials of our organization, .ca. And then they'll find everything they need on the website.
Yeah, and you can see that little green Join HSLDA button. And how much does it cost per day or per year or per month?
Right. So we do have various options for membership. You can join monthly, annually, or we also have a lifetime membership. And if you're a member, we encourage, like we talked about, encouraging people to be involved in their local support group. If you're involved in if you're involved in a local support group and that local support group is affiliated with us, which costs nothing, you can get a discount on your membership with us. So you can join for as little as $16 a month monthly, and which is, it's less than a cup of coffee at Tim Hortons a week to be a member. So to have the kind of peace of mind we can provide, I think is strongly worth it. Our family joined long before I ever took on the leadership of HSLDA. We just did it automatically when we started homeschooling because we thought, well, we may never have a problem, but perhaps others will. And if the knock ever does come at the door, well, I know I've got a lawyer on standby to represent and defend me if there's ever any trouble. And fortunately, most people won't face serious trouble, but sometimes you do. And it's, 80% of the folks that we represent that do run into trouble, never expected to have that trouble. It's not that they were doing anything wrong, but circumstances arose and they faced a challenge from some sort of government agency. And boy, were they glad to have us.
Absolutely. That's the same reason why I joined. And I highly encourage many of you to, or somebody you know who's homeschooling to become a member, because it grows the group too, and it becomes a stronger voice in Canada. And, with you never know when our freedoms are going to be challenged or taken away. And knowing you guys are on the front line doing the heavy lifting for us so we can just peaceably homeschool our children at home is just so, it's just comforting to know you're there for us. And we really appreciate. So have you got any closing comments just to share with our viewers here today?
Well, I'm excited about the future. I do think that we have a lot to offer the world as home educators. I mean, first of all, we've discovered a lot of things about education that the public system has either forgotten or maybe never knew. And so, there are a lot of homeschool parents out there who can go on to be leaders in the community when they're done their homeschooling. They can do the things you're doing, Doris. They can run for school board trustee. They can be a voice for reason and sanity in the public system. It needs a lot of help, and I think we have some of the answers and solutions that our public system needs. The other thing is we're raising a generation of home educated kids who are leaders themselves. I mean, maybe that wasn't our goal when we started. We didn't say, oh, I want my kid to lead the country or lead this or lead that. But just because of the nature of home education and because of the confidence our kids have and the great education they have, they've naturally become leaders in whatever field they go into, whether it's the trades or whether they go into law school or politics or whatever. They're all leaders, and that's a neat byproduct. So we're raising a generation that's going to one day change the world, and we're starting to see it already. It's quite exciting. We've just, by the way, we've got young people who were home educated elected to provincial parliament in Ontario. There's 2 of them now, home educated right their way through. They're in their 20s, and they've both been elected in recent years. We've had members of parliament at the federal level who are home educated, and we've got plenty of members of parliament and MPPs and others, MLAs and others, who are home educating their own children. So there's more and more recognition of the value that home education brings, and the difference it can make to the civic life in our country.
I agree. That's so encouraging to hear. Thank you again for giving us of your time and your thoughts. And we just want to wish you well, and I really appreciate your leadership in this role at HSLDA.
Thanks for having me on, Doris. It was good to see you again.
You bet. And for those of you who want to email me, you can reach me at homeschooling@actionforcanada.ca, and I'm happy to reply and help you and point you to the right people to help you with your concerns or questions. I also want to mention that next week there is no Empower Hour because our team is preparing for upcoming actions and gearing up for a busy fall and anticipating more great wins. So that's just next week, and then we'll be back again after that. Our verse for today is, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that's taken from the King James Version. So I looked it up under the New Living Translation, and I like it this way too. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. And that's just comforting to know that the investment as parents that we put into raising our kids and educating them at home, and you will see the fruit of your work in due time. So with that, we will close. Thank you everyone for being here. And I just want to say God bless you and God bless Canada.
help when they're down. We are going to use the teams and the people that build within chapters to support our businesses. The government's actions are completely 100% unlawful. Judgment will again be found on justice, and those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation have turned our backs on him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.